You're just not on her level." That's the exact sentence her cousin said to my face while drinking a $9 matcha latte in my own damn kitchen. I remember the cup. It said Boss Energy in gold lettering. Of course it did. Let me back up a bit. I'm Ethan, 31, urban planner. Raised in Austin by two of the most grounded humans on earth, Dad ran a landscaping business. Mom taught ESL at the local middle school. They were the type who believed in fixing what you broke, saying please and thank you, and bringing your neighbor's trash bins back in. That kind of people. I used to think Maddie Madeline Chen was cut from that same cloth. We met 4 years ago at a city infrastructure expo. She was in marketing for a green tech startup, and she made fun of my laminated zoning maps. I liked her immediately. She was smart, spicy, could talk circles around me on social policy, and didn't flinch when I said my hobbies included restoring busted record players and pretending I can cook French toast. Our relationship was one of those slow burns that turns into a fireplace. Moved in together after 14 months because we were already living like roommates with benefits. She'd hijack my hoodies. I'd bake banana bread she swore was better than Starbucks. I proposed on a hike at Lake Travis. Real low-key. No drone footage. Just us, my shaking hands, and a sunset. Everything was fine, or so I thought, until Olivia came to town. Last summer, Olivia, Maddie's older cousin / lifestyle architect / walking Instagram filter, flew in from LA after yet another vague energy realignment retreat in Tulum. She talks in phrases like ascending frequencies and don't play small. She's the kind of person who believes coconut oil cures heartbreak. I tried to keep an open mind. Family's family, right? Wrong. First red flag. She judged our apartment like it was a Motel 6. Didn't even hide it. Wow, it's cozy. So, functional. She said functional the way you say fungal. Second red flag. She kept pulling Maddie aside to chat about life. Suddenly, Maddie started lighting sage in the mornings, following weird juice fasts, and saying things like, "I just feel like maybe I'm shrinking to fit this life." EUTF does that even mean? Anyway, I thought it'd pass. Everyone's got a phase. Hell, I had a phase where I tried to grow a beard and looked like a sad lumberjack. This was her version, right? Except it wasn't a phase. It was a full-on conversion. 3 months ago, I caught them whispering on the balcony. Olivia glanced at me like I was a houseplant. Maddie avoided eye contact. Later that night, she said we needed to re-evaluate our future. I thought she meant kids or a mortgage. Nah, she meant me, she said, and I quote, "I'm starting to think maybe we're not aligned long-term. You're rooted. I think I'm meant to fly." I didn't even respond at first. I just sat there trying to breathe through the rage and confusion. I had spent 4 years building a life with this woman, painted rooms with her, shared Spotify accounts, put her name on my emergency contact forms. And now I was some kind of dead weight. Screw that. But I kept it together. I asked, "Is this because of Olivia?" She paused. "It's not just her." And that's when I knew. She'd been checked out for months. 2 weeks later, she moved out. Left her bookshelf. Took the blender. Left me with her cat, which is hilarious because I'm allergic, but she said he likes you more anyway. Cool. I didn't cry. Not that night. Not for a while. I was too angry to cry. Too humiliated. It felt like someone had hit the reset button on my life without asking. My friends tried to be supportive. My best friend Jordan brought over tacos and beer, called her a bougie parasite, which helped. A little. My sister told me to block her and never look back. I didn't block her, but I muted her everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, even LinkedIn. I couldn't stomach another glow-up post about her healing journey. Meanwhile, I poured myself into work. I took on a revitalization project for a decaying neighborhood near East Austin. It was gritty, unpaid for months, and the best damn distraction I could ask for. Until I started noticing weird things. Shared accounts still logged in. Her streaming activity showing late-night movies I'd never heard of. Uber receipts for trips that didn't match her excuses. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I checked our old Netflix account. She was watching rom-coms at 2 a.m. from LA, at Jake's house. Yeah, Jake, Olivia's business partner. The guy who calls himself a growth consultant and vapes during Zoom calls. That Jake. It hit me like a truck. she hadn't just left me, she'd replaced me. Last week, I got tagged in a post. A mutual friend had shared Olivia's engagement announcement. She was marrying a real estate tech CEO. The same cousin who preached about rejecting the patriarchal institution of marriage was planning a vineyard wedding in Sonoma with a custom hashtag, hypocrite. Word got around quick. Maddie was blindsided. Turns out Olivia had been stringing her along as a backup dancer while building her own main stage. And karma, it clocked in early. Jake dumped Maddie a week after the engagement announcement, publicly. Some influencer expose account even leaked DMs of him flirting with 3 different wellness coaches. I won't lie, I laughed. I didn't repost it or text her, but I laughed, hard. Then muted the story and went back to work. This morning I was making coffee when the doorbell rang. It was Maddie, standing in the rain, hoodie soaked, eyes red. "Can we talk?" I didn't answer. Just stared at her for a second, then stepped aside to let her in. Mr. Toast. The cat ran to her like she hadn't walked out of our lives. Of course he did. She sat on the new couch, the one I bought after she left. She looked around, familiar but different, kind of like how I felt looking at her. "I made a mistake," she whispered. I didn't say anything. She kept going, about how Olivia used her, how she felt stupid, lost, how she realized everything she gave up was real. I finally asked, "So what do you want from me?" She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Another chance." And that's where I'll leave it. For now. I just stood there for a second, like my brain short-circuited. Another chance. Nah, not after everything. But I didn't say that out loud yet. Not immediately. I just looked at her, soaking wet, sitting on a couch she didn't recognize in an apartment she used to live in but no longer belonged to. You know that moment when your body goes still but your mind is screaming, yeah, that. I walked into the kitchen, poured myself another coffee, didn't offer her one. She noticed. "So, this is new," she said, looking around. "Yeah," I replied flat. Figured it was time to redecorate. Clean slate. Her face twitched a little, like she got the metaphor but didn't want to admit it. Silence stretched out like a bad second date. Then she whispered, "I didn't expect this. I thought you'd be mad." Oh, Maddie, I was furious. I was devastated, but not anymore. I was mad, I said. For a while, mostly at myself, for not seeing through the bullshit sooner. She winced. Good. I sat across from her, arms folded, not leaning in, just observing. Like she was someone else's problem, and I was the consultant sent in to assess the damage. She started rambling. That nervous word vomit people do when they're trying to prove they've changed without actually apologizing for the right things. "I know I hurt you," she said. Olivia made it sound like I was wasting my potential. Like settling down this young meant I was giving up. And Jake, I didn't sleep with him okay. It never got that far. But I thought maybe, just maybe, if I was bolder, I could have a bigger life. I cut her off. "You thought being with me meant shrinking." She looked at the floor. "And now," I asked. "Now," she said, voice cracking, "I realized you were the only real thing I had, and I threw it away for a fantasy. And Olivia, she's getting married. Like married. Mansion, ring, hashtag found my frequency. And I'm out here couch surfing and applying to assistant roles because my coaching platform tanked. I lost everything." I blinked. "You didn't lose everything, Maddie. You left everything." There it was, the line. The truth neither of us had said out loud until that moment. She started crying, like really crying, hands shaking, breath stuttering, eyes pleading. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I was stupid. I was weak. I let her get in my head." I stayed quiet. Let her sit in it. I'm not cruel. I wasn't enjoying her pain, but damn if it didn't feel like long overdue gravity finally pulling her back to earth. She reached into her bag and pulled something out. It was the engagement ring. My grandmother's. The one I gave her on that hike when my hands were trembling but my heart was sure. "I kept it," she said. "I couldn't bring myself to sell it or give it back until I knew if there was a chance." I looked at the ring, then at her, and suddenly I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad or bitter or nostalgic. I was just done. "You know what's wild," I said. "I spent months trying to figure out what I did wrong. Thought maybe I wasn't ambitious enough, cool enough, flashy enough. But turns out I was just too real for someone addicted to pretend." She didn't deny it. I stood up. "I'm seeing someone," I told her. That made her flinch like I'd slapped her. I hadn't planned to say it then, but it felt right. Her name's Tessa. We met at a transit summit in Chicago. Don't laugh. She's a journalist, works for a nonprofit news outlet covering community displacement and housing injustice. She drinks black coffee, hates avocado toast, and laughs like someone who's never pretended to be someone else just to be liked. Tessa's the kind of person who says what she means and means what she says. Maddie used to be like that, until she wasn't. I didn't come here to steal you back, Maddie said, standing too. I just needed you to know I get it now. I see what I lost, and I'm sorry. I nodded. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said. She opened the door to leave but turned back one last time. Do you hate me? I paused. Thought about all the nights I'd stayed up scrolling through her fake deep quotes and beach selfies. Thought about the way she ghosted me emotionally long before she physically packed up. Thought about the spreadsheet I found in her email. Yes, she left her Gmail logged in one night labeled Maddie 2.0 plan, full of glow-up timelines, potential sugar daddies, influencer collabs, and places to manifest freedom. I thought about all of that. Then I said no, I just don't respect you. Her shoulders sagged. She nodded and left. Door closed. Quiet. Mr. Toast jumped up onto my lap like he knew the chapter was over. I took a breath, then picked up my phone and texted Tessa. Guess who just dropped by? She replied in 2 seconds. I swear, if it's your ex, I'm grabbing croissants and driving over. I smiled. And that's when I realized something. Peace doesn't always come wrapped in some grand revenge arc. Sometimes it's just the power of not needing to explain yourself anymore. Of knowing you're already living the life someone else had to lose to finally understand. That night Tessa came over. We didn't talk about Maddie. We didn't need to. Instead, we built a fort out of blankets and old moving boxes. She made pour-over coffee at midnight. I made French toast at 2 a.m. No hashtags, no rise and grind affirmations. Just two people who chose each other without needing an audience. And damn, that felt good. About a week after that, Maddie Visit Life slid right back into its new normal. And by normal, I mean real. Quiet, grounded, no daily drama, no walking on eggshells waiting for the next emotional whiplash. Just peace. And to be totally honest with you, I didn't expect to feel this okay so soon. I thought her showing up would leave me spinning for days, replaying old memories, overthinking what I said, questioning if I was too harsh or not harsh enough. But nope. She walked out of my life for good this time, and all I felt afterward was relief. That Sunday, Tessa came by around noon. She brought fresh berries and this artisanal butter she swears by, and we spent the afternoon making stupid TikToks of us absolutely destroying a croissant recipe. The dough was too dry. I forgot to chill it. At one point, we both just gave up and turned it into what we called chaos pastry. It was perfect. Tessa didn't ask about Maddie. She could probably guess, but that's the thing about her, she never pushes. She just shows up fully present, no need for drama or grand gestures. At one point, I was halfway through telling her about a new proposal I was submitting to the city council, something about pedestrian-friendly corridors, and she just stopped and looked at me. You're glowing, she said. I blinked. Excuse me. She laughed. You are. You look unburdened. That hit me harder than I expected. Because, yeah, I was unburdened. For the first time in years, I wasn't building a life hoping someone would want to stay. I was just living. For me. With someone who met me in that space. And it's wild how much that changes everything. The next big shift came 2 weeks later. I was at a community council meeting, boring as hell to most people, but I live for this stuff when I saw a familiar name on the attendee list. Madeline Chen. Not even kidding. She'd registered as a consultant for urban revitalization branding. I stared at the list for a solid 30 seconds, like maybe if I blinked enough times her name would vanish. It didn't. She showed up in heels too tall for the cracked pavement outside the building and a recycled blazer I recognized from when she interviewed for her old job downtown. She tried to act casual, but the second she saw me, her whole expression shifted. I nodded. She gave me a weird half smile and sat at the back. After the meeting, while I was packing up my materials, she approached. I braced myself for another awkward interaction, but she surprised me. Hey, I wasn't stalking you, I swear, she said almost sheepishly. Okay. I raised an eyebrow. She exhaled. I saw the project was open for branding bids and thought maybe it's time I worked on something real. Something I can actually believe in. I stared at her. The woman who had once called my job so safe it's basically beige was now here trying to pitch her creative services to a public housing initiative. Listen, she added, I'm not here to dredge up anything. I'm trying to get my life back on track. I didn't say much, just nodded and left it at that. And honestly, part of me respected it. Not her exactly, but the hustle, the trying. I knew how hard it was to pull yourself up after face-planting your life in full view of everyone. A few days later, I heard through the grapevine that she didn't get the bid. Apparently, she oversold her resume and underdelivered her proposal. One of the board members told me it felt too influencery, like she was pitching a yoga retreat, not a housing program. Oof. But hey, choices have consequences. I didn't gloat. I didn't text her or throw shade online. I just kept doing my job, planning parks, building safer bike lanes, helping kids get to school without having to cross 4-lane death traps. That's the thing nobody tells you about healing. It's boring. And that's kind of the point. No fireworks, no cinematic revenge scene, just long days of quiet consistency that eventually rebuild your whole world. Around that same time, Tessa had her own full circle moment. She got nominated for a regional journalism award for her expose on fake wellness coaches selling overpriced garbage to vulnerable women online. Her piece exposed several coaches with zero credentials, plagiarized ebooks, and $500 Zoom sessions that were basically just toxic positivity on loop. Guess who one of the featured experts in her investigation was? Yup, Olivia. Turns out Maddie's cousin had rebranded herself as a feminine empowerment therapist and was charging $799 for weekend intensives that basically told women to leave their relationships, cut out negative people, and buy her crystal-infused water bottles. When the piece went live, I didn't even flinch. Just sent Tessa a little chef's kiss emoji and said art. The fallout was immediate. Olivia posted a Notes app apology that somehow blamed male-dominated media for misunderstanding her vision. Then she went quiet for a week. Then she came back with a rebrand, The Unapologetic Goddess. You can't make this shit up. Maddie never commented on the article publicly, but I noticed she quietly removed all the old collabs from her site. Her last post was a vague quote about starting over without shame, then radio silence. I didn't need to know more. I didn't care to. Because while they were busy trying to rebuild performative platforms, I was planting real roots. This past weekend, Tessa and I were invited to speak on a panel at a local storytelling event. The theme was losing what you loved and finding what you needed. Tessa went first, told her story about burning out in big media and rediscovering purpose in advocacy journalism. She spoke with the kind of clarity that only comes from being gutted by something and choosing to grow anyway. Then it was my turn. I didn't plan to talk about Maddie, or Olivia, or any of it really. But when I stood up there and saw the crowd, real people, not filtered followers, I just let it flow. I talked about loving someone who slowly disappears while sitting right next to you. About waking up in a life that looks perfect from the outside, but feels empty as hell. About what it means to be left behind, not because you failed, but because someone else couldn't handle the quiet beauty of a stable, honest life. I ended it with this. There's nothing glamorous about rebuilding. It's not sexy, it doesn't get likes, but it's real, and real is worth staying for. When I finished, there was this long pause. Then applause, real applause, not out of pity, not because I was some underdog who finally won, but because people got it. Later that night, Tessa and I were walking back to her car. She slipped her hand into mine and leaned her head on my shoulder. You know, she said you could have made that a hit podcast. I laughed. What urban planning and heartbreak? Exactly, she grinned. Season 1 potholes and plot holes. I groaned. You're banned from naming things. She kissed my cheek and said, too late. I already named your cat Chaos. We both looked at Mr. Toast through the window, currently attacking a paper bag with dramatic flair. Yeah, Chaos fit. And just like that, another ordinary night felt extraordinary. Not because anything wild happened, but because I was with someone who made life feel like home, even when it was messy, unscripted, and silent. And that's the real glow-up. It was a Tuesday, one of those perfectly average days where nothing in particular happens. And that's kind of the whole blessing. I had just wrapped a city inspection on a new greenway project. My shoes were muddy, my shirt was wrinkled, and I had leaves stuck in my sock. I was halfway to my truck when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I never answer unknown numbers. Except I did. Ethan, it's Maddie's mom. I stopped mid-step. Now that I didn't expect. Hi, Mrs. Chen. Everything okay? Pause. She's not great, she said, voice tight. She's back in Austin. Been staying with me for a few weeks. I didn't know who else to call. My stomach dropped a little. Not out of concern exactly. More like the ghost of an old reflex. She hasn't been eating. Barely leaves her room. Keeps saying she messed everything up. There was another pause, one of those heavy, guilt-laced ones. I think she'd feel better if you stopped by. I exhaled. Hard. No offense, Mrs. Chen, but that chapter's closed. I've moved on. I don't hate Maddie, but I can't be her support system anymore. She was quiet for a second. Then gently, I understand. I really do. I just thought you should know. She hung up before I could reply, and I stood there for a full minute staring at my muddy boots, feeling conflicted. Because, yeah, I had moved on. But part of me still hated the idea of anyone feeling that low, even her. I drove home. Didn't tell Tessa about the call. Not right away. Not because I was hiding it, but because I needed time to decide what, if anything, I was supposed to do with it. That night, over stir-fry and sparkling water, Tessa was telling me about her latest piece on housing vouchers being used to evict long-term tenants. Her eyes lit up when she talked about the interviews, these elderly residents with nowhere to go, suddenly getting pushed out for luxury condos. I don't want to just tell their stories, she said. I want people to feel their stories, to get mad. I watched her mid-rant face flushed with passion chopsticks waving in the air. And I thought, this is it. This is what love looks like when it's built on substance. Not just attraction or vibes or curated aesthetics, but deep visceral admiration. So I told her about the call. She listened. Didn't flinch. Didn't twist her mouth or raise an eyebrow. When I was done, she just said, "Do you want to see her?" "No," I said, instantly. But I don't want to pretend I'm made of stone either. It'd feel wrong to know she's hurting and just do nothing. She nodded, took a sip of water, then smiled. Okay, then do something. Just don't forget who you are now. 2 days later, I knocked on the door of Maddie's childhood home. It smelled like sandalwood and lemon balm, exactly like I remembered. Her mom answered, looked relieved and weirdly emotional. Offered tea. I declined. "She's upstairs," she whispered, like Maddie was a sleeping infant and not a grown woman spiraling into a personal identity crisis. I went up, knocked once, the door creaked open a few inches. She was sitting on the floor, surrounded by old notebooks, half-burned candles, and a whiteboard with some kind of failed rebrand titled The Mindful Maverick. Jesus. She looked up, and for a second we both just froze. "I didn't think you'd come," she said. I stepped inside carefully, like one wrong move would trigger something fragile. "You look different," she added. "Yeah, that's kind of the point." She nodded slowly, like her brain was lagging behind the conversation. "I lost everything," she said. "The apartment, the clients, Olivia's support, the money. I didn't even realize she'd been floating me." She gave a sad little laugh. "She blocked me, by the way. After I called her out for using me to sell her bullshit." I didn't respond. "I thought I was ascending," Maddie muttered half to herself. "Thought I was chasing growth, expansion, whatever the hell that means. Turns out I was just running from stability. From actual love. From you." I exhaled through my nose. Quiet. Controlled. "I'm not here to reopen old wounds," I said. "I'm not coming back. I just wanted to look you in the eye and tell you that I don't hate you. You hurt me. Deeply. But I'm okay now, and I hope eventually you will be too." She blinked fast. "Is she good to you?" "Tessa," I asked. "She's everything you're not, and I mean that with respect." That landed. She didn't argue. I turned to leave. As I reached the door, she called out, "Ethan." I glanced back. "You were the only real thing in my life." I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't say anything. On the way home, I stopped by a tiny fruit market Tessa loved, picked up fresh figs and rosemary bread. When I walked into the apartment, she was curled up with Mr. Toast editing audio for her podcast. I kissed her forehead, handed her the bag, and said I did the thing. She looked up, eyes soft but steady. "How do you feel?" "Like I finally shut the last window of a house I moved out of a long time ago." She smiled. "Good. Now help me name this episode. I'm stuck between gurus and gaslighting or spiritual bypass my ass." I laughed so hard I almost dropped the figs. God, I love this woman. That weekend, we went on a little road trip, nothing fancy. Just a cabin 2 hours away, tucked behind a lake and a mess of pine trees. No Wi-Fi, spotty service, just nature firewood and an absurdly squeaky bed. One morning we hiked to a bluff overlooking the water. I packed thermoses of coffee, and she brought leftover croissants from this indie bakery she worshipped. We sat in silence for a while, just listening to the birds and the soft lapping of the lake below. Then she said, "You ever think about what would have happened if you'd said yes to Maddie?" I paused. Sometimes. But it's like wondering what would have happened if I'd majored in business instead of urban planning. It's not regret. It's just a different universe. She nodded. "I'm glad you're in mine." I leaned over, kissed her temple, and said, "Me too." Later that night, by the fire, we shared stories we hadn't told anyone else. I told her about the time Maddie made me feel like a hobby I loved, record collecting, was too nerdy to bring up in public. About how I used to tone myself down, dress trendy, or speak in buzzwords just to feel like I wasn't embarrassing her. Tessa looked at me like she wanted to fight past me on my behalf. Then she said, "If anyone ever made you feel like too much again, I'd kick their ass." Gently, but still. She kissed me slow and firm, and I swear every scar Maddie left healed a little more right then and there. Before bed, I checked my phone one last time. No service, obviously, but I still opened my notes app. I wrote, "Closure isn't always some big dramatic confrontation. Sometimes it's sitting next to someone who sees all your weird little habits and thinks, 'God, I'm lucky.' Sometimes closure is watching the person who left you slowly realize you were the one thing they'll never find again. And sometimes it's just a quiet night, some bad wine, and the love of someone who never needed you to perform. That's enough, finally." I put the phone away. Tessa curled into me, already half asleep. And just like that, I fell into the deepest, most peaceful sleep I'd had in years. No ghosts, no noise, just us. It's weird how time moves differently once you've fully let someone go. Like, there's the before, you're stuck replaying every text, every argument, every happy memory that now feels tainted. And then after enough healing and real laughter and real love, there's just after. No echo, no guilt, just peace. That's where I was now, in the after. But the universe, as it loves to do, wasn't quite done with its little ironic surprises. One night in early spring, I was at this fundraiser gala. Don't get excited, it was just for local zoning policy reform. So yeah, very sexy. I was helping present our Revive the Block campaign. Tessa was with me, dressed like a damn dream in this navy jumpsuit that made her look like she'd walked out of a Vanity Fair editorial, not a municipal event. We were clinking glasses with a city councilwoman when I heard a voice behind me that made every hair on my neck stand up. "Ethan, oh my God, I didn't think I'd see you here." I turned around. Maddie, again. Only this time, she wasn't a mess. She looked polished, poised, like she'd spent the last 6 months reassembling herself piece by piece and had finally figured out where to glue the cracks. I nodded politely. "Hey." Tessa, being Tessa, instantly held out a hand. "Hi, I'm Tessa." Maddie blinked. Clearly wasn't expecting me to be with someone like her. Someone confident, smart, who didn't feel the need to shrink next to me. "Oh, wow, you two are..." "Wow," she said awkwardly. Tessa smiled. "We try." The rest of the night was fine. Maddie kept her distance, didn't cause a scene, but I caught her looking over a few times. Not angry, not jealous, just processing. Later, as we were leaving, Tessa leaned in and whispered, "That was her, wasn't it?" "Yep." "She's not over you." I shrugged. "That's not my responsibility anymore." Tessa squeezed my hand. "Damn right." A couple weeks later, I got an email. Subject line, "Professional opportunity, request for collaboration." Guess who? Yep. Maddie wanted to collaborate on a community rebranding initiative. Said she'd been doing work with some smaller nonprofits, wanted to apply her newfound experience in value-driven storytelling. I stared at the screen, debating whether to reply with a polite no thanks or just delete it. Instead, I forwarded it to my project manager with a quick note: conflict of interest. Please exclude from vendor consideration. Cold maybe, but necessary. See, that's the thing about boundaries. People always assume they have to be aggressive to be effective. But really, the strongest ones are quiet, calm, firm. I wasn't mad anymore. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted my space to stay mine. And honestly, life was too good to let old ghosts sneak back in. Our Revive the Block project got greenlit. We secured a grant to turn an old industrial lot into a community co-op garden and outdoor learning space. The local high school's shop class got involved. Kids were building benches and planter boxes with their own hands. Watching them work, seeing how proud they were when we unveiled the site at the block party. That hit harder than any ring could. Tessa covered the project for her newsletter. The way she wrote about it, calling out how rare it is to see sustainable urban planning that actually centers the community, it made me feel like what I was doing mattered. Not just professionally, but personally. Like I wasn't just fixing roads and layouts. I was rebuilding faith. In people, in systems, in myself. One night after the co-op launch, Tessa and I were sitting on the balcony, wine in hand, legs tangled, watching the sunset smear the sky in pastels. You ever wonder what she wanted from that email, she asked. I thought about it. Validation, maybe. To prove she's evolved. To show me she's still somebody. Tessa took a sip of wine. But you don't care. Nope. Good. We sat in silence for a while. Then I asked her something that had been floating in the back of my mind for months. What scares you the most about this us? She looked at me, eyes serious, thoughtful. Losing the simplicity, she said. The honesty. I've had relationships where everything looked perfect but felt hollow as hell. I don't want to lose the real. I reached over, took her hand. We won't. And I meant it. 3 weeks later, I took her to Traverse Ridge, a park I hadn't been to since that proposal. Different trail, different vibe, but same sweeping views and endless sky. We hiked until sunset, ate sandwiches by the cliff. I pulled out a small box. Not a ring, a compass. Cheesy, I know, I said, but I figured you're the only person who's never made me feel lost. Even when everything else was burning down, you were the one thing that felt like true north. She opened it. Inside was a tiny inscription, "Stay where the real things grow." She teared up, kissed me so hard I forgot what oxygen was. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't trying to fix anything anymore. I wasn't clinging to old dreams or proving I was worthy of staying. I was just here, present, whole. Later that week, Maddie sent one more email. Short this time, just 2 lines. I understand now. I wish you well. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. And that was the most satisfying ending I could have imagined. No clapback, no final monologue. Just silence. Because when you finally become the version of yourself you were always meant to be, you don't need to burn bridges. You're already too far down the road to see the smoke.